Good morning. It is Easter Monday, I believe April 13th, 2020, and I wanted to introduce myself a little bit. For those of you who haven't seen my videos before, my name is ELIZA DeVries, and I live in Los Angeles. I'm Canadian by birth. My education was basically in creative writing and business. And in my late 40s, I have always had since childhood a tremendous connection to and awareness of the other side of the inner realms. And I had, when I was very tiny, angelic visitations from beings that I didn't quite understand but felt extraordinarily comforted by. As I got older and got married and had 5 children, 2 stepchildren and 3 babies within 5 years, my life changed dramatically. It went from a relatively affluent home with all the amenities and cottages and houses, etc., to living very sparsely and having to develop a lot of sense of inner ingenuity and turn to God for help countless times on my knees, surrendering how to keep everybody going. Because as it turned out, for 21 years I was basically supporting, for 11 of those years I was supporting 7 people. My husband was crippled, and for 21 years I was supporting 5 people. So I had to be resourceful. I made a lot of errors. I did the best I could. I learned through the School of Hard Knocks. Having come from a more erudite, educated family, I was now down in the trenches and with no help. And of course, yes, help from divine source and loving my children to bits and tending to a husband that was not well. So through that, my husband died when I was 43 in a severe accident. At age 43, he died. He was 20 years my senior. And I was literally left with not enough money to bury him. And I had to turn to my family in Toronto. It was very humiliating and in a way good. I had to go to my knees and just ask for some help. I got some help to look after all of that. Started my own business consulting firm. And from there, ended up back in Vancouver. I'd lived in Vancouver a while, ended up back in Vancouver. And from there, came down to California with my daughter. And for most of the years when I was raising children, my daughter and I were riding and rehabilitating abused horses and selling them. That was our source of income for the entire family. So she was working from a very young age with her mama. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because we had to face losing everything several times, 3 to 4 times. And it's not a complaint, it was a fact. And so starting over was something we had to learn to do several times. When I was age 48, I had a profound experience. I had come back from Europe. I'd been in the art world for a while, the high-end art world, and I'd come to Vancouver to stay with my daughter as I was literally down to my last $50. And I was staying there, staying with her and her boyfriend. And while there, I had a profound experience in the backyard with my daughter. I literally, on a clear night, had lightning energy shoot from the sky right through my body. And I wasn't a New Ager. I was always deeply devoted to Christ and to mystical experiences, but I was not into the New Age world. I was more an independent thinker and figuring it out on a daily basis with the help of God and my children. So when this happened, it wasn't like some divine revelation. It wasn't a great feeling. It was terrifying. My body felt utterly electrified, and I couldn't sleep for 3 full days, and I was very frightened. I thought something was wrong with me, that I would never recover my nervous system. I was terrified. I started hearing voices and seeing more things. And so I went to a man who was the head of the World Research Foundation, who had a lot of contact with different mystics all over the world. And he sent me to an old Cherokee Indian in Simi Valley. And here I am, age 48, electrified, literally. And I head to Simi Valley, and this little old man in his 70s sitting on the porch holding a black dog on his lap and rocking in his chair. He had one of those really beautiful North American Indian faces, very slender man with high cheekbones and hollowed out eyes that were very deep and mystical. He got up from his chair and he said, "I have been waiting for you." So for the next 6 months, I would go there, often 3 to 4 times a week. And initially, he was talking to me. This was a man who was Edgar Cayce's successor. He had given over 15,000 readings all over the world. At one time, it had been 2-year waiting list to be able to meet this man and have a reading. I personally observed him giving readings to people, like a boy in Las Vegas that was dying. I sat with him and wrote 17 pages of notes and faxed them to the parents, and they went to the doctors and followed the advice of his notes, and every one of the words on his notes was absolutely accurate. This is an extraordinary individual. A man of great, he was not this, like Edgar Cayce, he would go to sleep and then he'd do his diagnosis and readings. This man was awake, sitting but with his eyes closed, but in sort of channeling a doctor who would have a team of doctors with him, and literally gave medical readings all over the world for years and years and years. He had the same kind of opening, and it did not happen until he was age 50. He said often that when you get an opening like that in your later years, it's because they put you through a lot of trials and death and loss and suffering to temper your soul, so that when the gifts are bestowed, you will not abuse them and you will not get puffed up by the situation. I think it was quite amazing. What it eventually started happening between Edward and myself is I started to give him readings. I started to be the one with my eyes closed, seeing visions, describing his childhood, where he lived, and just seeing things and seeing things and seeing things. And he said to me, after 6 months, "Okay, I want you to go into the world. I want you to go to Venice Beach and set up a table with a scarf over it and no sign, nothing. And I want you to give readings to people." I said, "I know nothing about that." He goes, "We've been doing it with me for several months." And he goes, "People are going to come there and they're going to find you. Don't put any notice, psychic or card reader, nothing." And so he said, "You will know when you're supposed to leave Venice Beach. You'll get a strong message." And he said, "The second thing is, every day when you go, the last car closest to the beach will leave and you'll have a parking spot." Because at this time I had absolutely no money. And so I drove down there, borrowed Mark's car, drove down to the beach. Every day the last car would leave. I set up my little table and I had the education of my life. I was there for 6 months. And people found me from all over the world. And one day I'd be giving a reading to a drug dealer, the next day to someone that just gotten out of jail, the next day to a film producer, the next day to someone traveling from France. I had people coming from all over the world, and some of them even said to me, we were told to find Elizabeth at Venice Beach, which floored me. And I had no idea. I was trembling each time somebody sat down. What was I going to say? What was going to happen? But the readings just started to flood through me. And my son Andre was with me. He also was giving readings because he's extraordinarily intuitive. And what happened was that the last day I was there, and I didn't know it was the last day, when I was there, a man was shot 6 times in front of me, right on Venice Beach. And Andre, brave soul that he is, threw his body over me and onto the sand to protect me. That was his first reaction. And we both got up, dusted off the sand, and I looked at him, I go, I guess that's our message, we're done here. So I had given out my phone number to a lot of people, but I had no clients, just people that found me there. I went back to my little room where I was staying with Gigi and Mark. And I had this tiny little room I was staying in, and one suitcase of clothes. Those were all my possessions in the world. People started to find me. They started to write me, they started to phone me, and I started to give readings. And from there, I had a series of miraculous, synchronistic things happen that brought me to run to look after the apartment of a girl who later became one of my best friends in Toluca Lake, and started giving more and more readings, picked up astrology, started to study it 6 hours a day. And I was having these vast, wild openings, and started to study healing. And I mean, it was just like the whole metaphysical world in the deepest way opened, wide open to me. And from there, I think I've given now 9,500 readings all over the world. Germany, Arabia, Australia, you name it. Switzerland, England, Canada, America, everywhere. And then what happened over those years, to briefly include it, is that I experienced a lot of deaths. My husband was the first death. Then the second death was my mate, John. And then the third death was my mate, Habib. All sudden, fast deaths, like gone. John was supposed to come down from Vancouver. We'd been together 8 years. We had a glorious relationship. And we were talking about getting together the following week to get married finally, because we had been back and forth. And he hung up the phone and died. And I went outside the front door, and a raven swooped down in front of my face and screamed in my face. And I knew he was gone. And the other person I was with was when I was in Europe, was a Palestinian man who had gone to Switzerland and become a lawyer, and we fell deeply, deeply in love. And he died while I was over there. So I had these 3 deaths. Then I came back, and my stepson Wayne passed, whom I had helped to raise as one of my children. And then the final thing was that in 2012, Gigi passed. Well, with these deaths, each time somebody died and I was feeling great trauma and great longing to connect, I reached deeper and deeper and deeper into those realms where I finally could hear people, see people, read their lives, feel their journeys and their messages. And I found that instead of my staying in the center of grief, I now was able to alleviate the grief of others and hear my daughter and communicate with my family. And then the year after that, My two very closest friends both died within 2 weeks of each other. So there I was in this Pluto period where everybody was just snatched away, and it was me, my sons, and the world, and my critters. From there, I did become a Reiki master in the Asui method of Reiki and in the Karuna method of Reiki. And I realized that God had gifted me with a capability to not only be a conduit, which we all have that capability, but to actually be able to surrender enough of my being that I could literally get out of the way and just allow that voltage to move through me. My body had been so cleared by the work I was doing. Each day when I give a reading, when I give a healing, my body is cleared more and more, and I give myself a personal healing every night, every single night. Because, number one, I am an emotional empath and I pick up a lot of what people go through. I process everybody's pain when I give a reading. When someone calls me, their pain moves through me. So I have to heal myself every night as a way of releasing, so I don't hold on to anything. Flower, lie down, sweetie pie. Speaking of needing a healing, you go lie down, darling. Lie down. That's a good girl. Good girly. So after that, the healing work became very, very powerful, wonderful tool. And I realized that the long distance healings were just as powerful as the healing where I could actually hold and touch and stroke. And I realized how starved human beings are for the human touch. I also realized what a great gift it was for me to have this glorious energy running through me while it was flooding into someone else. People say, well, don't you get tired when you give a healing? No, you don't. Because when you surrender yourself to God and give over your hands, your heart, your soul to the divine energy, you are flooded. As it goes through you, then it goes through into the next person. Flower, come on, lie down. You're being very restless, sweetheart. That's my girlie. Down. She's not well right now, so she gets up and walks a lot so that she keeps her body moving. Good girl, good girlie. She's really a wonderful dog, healer dog, another empath. So I just wanted to give a brief story of my life. I'm now 77. I feel that through the work I'm doing and the love and mercy moving through me daily, and the connection with all of you, because all of you have helped me to heal. Each reading, each healing I give, I learn something. It's not a one-way street. And so if any of you would like to receive a long-distance healing, you can join my page, Holding Hands with Your Heart, on Facebook, or you can personally message me and I will send you a specific healing. Or if you wish to have an astrological reading, or a intuitive reading, or mediumship reading with someone who is crossed. The final thing I did want to mention about astrology is that in my 50s, I became a well-known astrologer. I wrote for 17 years a magazine for the well-known arts and entertainment magazine Venice. And that was the magazine that would cover all the Hollywood stars. And I was trying to inject a little spirituality into that world. So this is a brief history of my life. The astrology that I've studied is what you call esoteric or spiritual astrology. I look at your chart as a vehicle for your growth and how to help you at this time in your life, the energies that are impacting you. I use astrology as a tool. I always acknowledge that no one is just the label of their sign, that we all have great, grand souls within, and the more we connect with our inner being, the less there is any kind of definition to who we are. So God be with you. If you want to read more about me or see more about me, you can look at my videos here. You can look at my websites. I have 3 websites: angelicmercy.com, which is my spiritual, intuitive, mediumship, astrology, healing website. I have the ELIZADevriesStudio.com, which is for all of my artwork, which you can see behind me here. And we'll talk about that another time. And then I have my website for strictly for animals, animal communication, critterhugs.com. And on that website, I tell you how I can come to your home. If you have a pet that's crossing over, you'd like to have it have a healing as it's going. Or I've gone to vets' offices and worked on animals that are ill there. The owners have asked me to do that. We've had some amazing experiences with that. Or I've done animal communication for people that have adopted animals and don't know their history and wonder why they have certain phobias or fears or proclivities. And the other thing is I give doggy readings. I gave one reading to a lady in New York. She had 4 dogs, and each dog, when it was their 15-minute turn, would come and sit in front of her. She said it was just hilarious. And we went through the past of each of those adopted dogs and how to help them get along and what their sorrows and sufferings were before they came to this wonderful person. Thank you all. God be with you. May we all hold hope, inspiration, and the understanding that love and angelic mercy are beyond the realms of any virus or any suffering. They're in such a high, shimmering place. Hold to your vision on that, and you'll be fine. And also to remind you, having spoke to so many on the other side, death is not the end. Death is walking through a door to another expression of being, carrying with you what you have learned from this life and what you still are contemplating and clearing for your next life or for your afterlife. So there is no end, and I do feel in my heart of hearts that we all go at exactly the perfect moment that our soul has designed for us. Thank you so much. God be with you. Love you all. And if you would like a reading,